All right, good evening and welcome to tonight's meeting of the Lunenburg Municipal Building Design Committee. Make sure we are projecting correctly here. Today is Wednesday, April the 30th, 2025. I am Michael Ray Jeffries, and let me pull up our agenda here so that way I can read it, all of our standard language. In accordance with the requirements of open meeting law, please be advised that this meeting is being recorded and will be broadcast over the Lunenburg Public Access channel. The recording of this meeting will be available on the Lunenburg Public Access YouTube channel within 24 hours. The agenda lists all the topics which may be discussed at this meeting and are those reasonably anticipated by the chair. Votes may be taken as a result of these discussions. Not all items listed may in fact be discussed, and other items not listed may also be brought up for discussion to the extent permitted by the open meeting law. Public participation is encouraged, and public comments may be welcome, will be welcome, during committee member discussions at the discretion of the chair. So with us this evening, we have myself, Michael Ray Jeffries, representing the Select Board. We have Brian Leighton representing the School Committee. We have Tom Gray representing the Finance Committee. Dave Blatt is a citizen at large. We are missing Christina Masitis. We understand that she is due. I think I haven't confirmed that she's had her baby, but she is due this week. So I'm sure that in those final stages, that's, I'm sure, really exciting for her and her family. Mr. Roy, another citizen at large, mentioned that he will be running a little bit late this evening. And then Mr. Allison, we know he has some personal things today, and so he may be able to join in with us. Mr. Allison represents the planning board. We also are joined by Mr. Tony Scullambrini, APDC representative. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started here this evening. Can everyone see me okay? All right, excellent. So looking at our agenda this evening, let's start with any public comments. Do we have any public comments from the board? Do we have any public comments from Mr. Scullambrini? Seeing none. Any public comments from the public? I see we're joined by Glenn. Glenn, thank you for joining us this evening. I do welcome you to be a participant in tonight's discussion. You are welcome to turn your camera on and really just act as a full-fledged member here as we try to include all of the members of the public as if they are members of the committee. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to review the presentation that we have that I've started here for this Saturday's annual town meeting. And I want to jump the agenda though. So I want to go straight to the Brooks House discussion on the Brooks House and really just inform the committee on a couple of new developments, or rather information that's come out. So, as we know, the select board has asked us to look into several things related to the Brooks House. Really, this was an article that came out of the fall town meeting, looking at how to turn the Brooks House, how to convert it into a non-municipal use, identifying what's needed for that. So, at our last meeting, just to give a summary recap, at our last meeting, we discussed some of our concerns with the property, some of our hopes for the property, and I think the bottom line that it came down to was parking. And really about parking calculations, because the site does have Mass Ave to the south, it has driveway into the schools to the east, and then it has kind of these detention basins to the west and to the north. So I want to pull up some language here, and you have to just give me a second to find it. But I did reach out to the planning board, excuse me, land use department staff. I did reach out to the land use department to ask them if they could go back and look at when the library was created, if they had planned for parking for the Brooks House. And I'm going to read the ultimately what was approved from the language in that application. And what the language says, and I'm reading this from the application on page 9 and a section from page 10. It says, phase 2, again, this is referring to the library. As previously noted, phase one of this project, currently under review by the Lindbergh Planning Board, consists of relocation of the existing Pasos Elementary School driveway to allow for the construction of the proposed library. Phase two consists of the design and construction of the library itself. Let me admit Mr. Roy. Wait for him to get in here. Hey, Greg, thanks for joining us. We just started a little late here. I'm just reading from the library's approved site plan on page 9 and 10 of their application. Phase two consists of the design and construction of the library itself, on-site stormwater management and associated parking, along with reconfiguration of Brooks House parking. And then on page 10, it says it should be noted that parking for the Brooks House must be relocated to allow for the school driveway relocation. The site plan shows 20 parking spaces just north of the Brooks House, east of the proposed library, to be designated specifically for use by the Brooks House. To maximize the safety and circulation on the school site, all traffic accessing the Brooks House parking area must do so by way of the library driveway. These parking spaces are not included in the parking calculations for the library, as they will be used exclusively by the Brooks House. So I asked Logan to look into the history here because, again, parking is the major limitation of the Brooks House site. And so it does appear as though the Brooks House has 20 parking spaces potentially associated with it. I reached out to the trustees of the library. As we know in the town, the trustees of the library, maybe some people don't know, but the trustees of the library have a lot of authority over what happens at the library. And so I approached the library and said, hey, I tried to phrase this in a non-steering way, and I didn't attend their meeting intentionally. I just called in to ask them to work on this. But I phrased it as, hey, we're in a situation where we are moving on how to make the Brooks House usable, and I would like to capture your feedback on what we can do to make that work. I'm not asking for your opposition. What I'm asking for is how we make this work. And so I want to read through some of the feedback that the library ended up having one of their longest meeting in years to discuss this. And they sent me a summary of their feedback, and I will distribute it to the committee following this meeting. Just let me just pull it up. All right. And I'm going to go ahead and share the screen here so that way we all can see this. All right. So let me make sure I hit the right thing here. I think it's Adobe, share. All right. So these are the notes that they sent over, so I'm just going to read through them. Redevelopment of the Brooks House. These are the notes that they took while they were having this conversation. Employees can fill up the staff parking spots on the east side of the library. When those spots are taken by patrons, the staff will then park in the Brooks House lot. Contractors doing work at the library will use the Brooks House lot, especially if they have large vehicles. Some contractors will park on Memorial Drive. If the Brooks House is renovated, contractors' vehicles would be an issue for traffic and parking. When school lets out, parents will park in the Brooks House and library parking lots and wait for their kids to walk over from the school so that they don't have to wait in the long pickup lines. In the evenings, the parking lot can be full depending on the programs being offered. People park at the library so they can take a walk or go to the playground. The teen center will use the library parking lot during their Shrieks and Creeks event. The adult activity center will use the library parking lot. Kids walk through the parking lot after school gets out to go to the library, to go home, or to, I'm guessing, go wherever. Even if the owner lessee is limited to only using 8 library spots for their overflow parking, there is nothing to stop them from using more. Town documents say that access to the Brooks House parking lot cannot be from the school's driveway. Can this be changed to give access to the Brooks House that does not go through the library parking lot? The town cannot control what type of business will go to the Brooks House, or do they have any say? Does being in the APDC have any bearing on this? Safety and liability are a concern. Kids walking through parking lot at a busy time, parents rushing after school activities. It seems that at one of the busiest times, you have people who are paying less attention than usual. The APDC sees a benefit to the town if a business goes into this location that will attract people to what the library offers. On the other hand, a private business in the midst of these town-owned buildings would be out of place. Because of the effect this can have on the library director and trustees should be involved in the decision-making process and not just be asked to comment once the decision has been made. And then this was not mentioned last night, but I have seen driving schools wait in the library parking lot to pick up students after school lets out. The student drivers are then the ones driving out of the parking lot, and Mira may know if this is still happening. So I can co-sign on this last comment. There are drivers. I live down the hill from the center of town, so I pass the library and the center of town every time I need to go out unless I'm going through air. And there are training events that happen over the weekends. So I also met with the school committee briefly, just similarly to capture their feedback. The school committee did not express any concerns about the reuse of the Brooks House. And that was pretty unanimous in terms of how I read the committee at least. And Brian, do you want to speak to that in any more detail in terms of feedback from the school committee?
No, I would agree. I think we were all on the same page that we want something done, that we don't want just a building sitting there. I think that's the concern is it's just a vacant building, not doing anything, and it's costing the town money.
All right. So the intent at this point, and let me stop screen sharing. Thank you, Brian. So the intent at this point is for me to provide an update on behalf of the select board that basically captures where we're at, which is informing the public that we've met with the school committee, summarizing the feedback from the library, and what I can do tomorrow and before town meeting is just put a very brief presentation together. It's going to be tonight and tomorrow because I owe it to Kara by noon tomorrow. But a very brief summary that just highlights the potential uses for the site and that identifies that we will be looking for votes likely in the fall. Or at least the next select board without me on it. So I can't be political here, but maybe that will be you, Brian. So so it looks like there will be some work carrying over to really be able to bring this across the finish line. And something that Tony mentioned and before we got going here from the APDC is that he'd like for whatever goes into this RFP to have some opening for offers that are beyond the compliant uses. That would trigger ZBA. And so I think that what we can do is look at the use table for what could be allowable in this area. I think many things that are allowable in commercial districts, as I believe this is, um, would be largely allowable, and that potential things, that may be subject to additional boards and committees, likely would trigger a ZBA process, and could potentially be residential, but not a problem to give a quick highlight overview there and then to pass it on. Anyone have a conflict with me taking that approach to the update on behalf of the select board? All right, hearing none. Excellent. All right, so let's go ahead and get going to the draft presentation for the Municipal Building Design Committee. So I'm going to review this. We're going to walk through it. I have a couple placeholders in here for discussion. It is not a complete presentation, but I think it's about 80 something percent, maybe more complete. All right, I'm going to start sharing the screen here, and we're going to walk through it. And please, as I'm presenting this to the committee, this is your first time seeing this. And so let's make sure we're pausing and giving some input here as we walk through. All right. So one comment I will start off with is saying that town meeting presentations don't are usually PDFs, so there's no cool features that are going to be utilized in terms of things coming in and out. It's going to be a pretty flat screen, and I typically use Apple anyway, so I'm not a PowerPoint guru. I like Keynote. All right, let me go ahead and share the screen here. Can everyone see this okay? All right. Lunenburg Municipal Building Design. That's just what I've titled it. I left the blank here for subtitles if we want to note committee members or anything like that, but we can come back to this cover page. Agenda overview. So the scope, the why, history process, and I think that I have changed that to history and engagement. New school district offices, new town hall, meeting house, existing buildings, building in the Commonwealth, and cost breakdown. So going over this agenda and just talking through it, I think it's important from the start to start with the why. What are we doing? Why are we doing it? And also to give a history because there's a lot of history here. And then engagement, what we've done to engage the community. And then kind of starting with the order of what we're looking at here on, starting with the school district offices, the new town hall, the meeting house, going into existing buildings. Existing buildings has not been populated. That's a placeholder blank slide for us to figure out what we want to put in there. I think it's helpful to talk about building in the Commonwealth in terms of a slide or two that explains the public building process, because I think a lot of, and how it protects the public. I think it would be helpful to kind of walk through schematic design, et cetera, construction documents, just to educate the public a bit, and then into detail on the cost breakdown. Um,
Michael, Ray, quick question. Why, is there a reason why you're doing new school district offices first and new town hall second versus the other way around?
Yes, I think that given the potential audience at town meeting, I think it's important to focus on the things that the community gets out of the building before we, transfer over to the municipal benefit in terms of staff benefits.
All right, no, just asking the question.
Yeah. But as we walk through this, if you think we should change it, let's do it. All right, so scope and charge as amended in January 4th of 2022. We have representatives from the select board, school committee, finance committee, planning board, and 3 citizens at large. It is to work with contracted architectural engineering firms to review space needs for town offices, school uses, and community space at the TC Passios and any other town-owned building and property. It's to prioritize and or rank the existing space usage requests and explore a variety of design permutations at different budget tiers that will meet the needs of the town according to the priorities, and to prepare viable, cost-effective solutions that conform to the town's existing financial and fiscal, I think this was supposed to say priorities. I did not proofread, and take that into consideration and take into consideration any large-scale capital expenditures projected for the next 10 years. Greg.
Suggestion, maybe bold out on the second bullet, maybe bold out any other town-owned, just bold out the last part of that says any other town-owned building and property, because that was really the substantive change. And it represented a point where we were pivoting from a very expensive renovation of an old school to looking at trying to wrap in other buildings. And I think that's a real advantage of this plan is it addresses a criticism that we received during that, prior to 2022 that said, well, what are we doing with the other buildings?
Yeah.
So this plan, because the charge was expanded, allowed us to look at other buildings and come up with a plan that renovates 2 of them and adds on to 1 of them and modernizes both, and doesn't leave us with, more or the same amount of buildings that haven't been addressed.
All right. Any other comments here? All right. History slides, there are 3 of them. And so let's walk through this. In the 1980s, the town formed a building committee to modify the usage of town hall to accommodate a growing town. After a few years, plans were not advanced. When the new library opened in 2003, and I need to verify that date, that year, the town started using the Ritter building for municipal offices, inspectional or building type services. The 2013 annual town meeting authorized the creation of a building reuse committee. The building reuse committee met from July 2013 through April 2017. In 2015-2016, the school committee identified the TC Passios building as surplus property, and by a 2/3 vote at town meeting, transferred custody of the property to the select board for municipal purposes. Town meeting funded the TAP-A study and Vertex study to identify how to reuse town buildings and assess existing conditions. The Building Reuse Committee was focused on both commercial and municipal uses in town center. At the time, the town created the Architectural Preservation District to, in summary, provide for historical building preservation in the town center and to promote commercial density in the center of town. Town meeting in 2018 and 2019 voted down all requests to sell any municipal property in town center. 2019 annual town meeting authorized the sale of the building, but not the land for the Brooks House. 2019 annual town meeting authorized funding for engineering and architectural services to consolidate town offices, school offices, and community space at the TC Passios building. The TC
Michael, right?
Yep.
Real quick. It might be helpful if we have the data points of how much we have spent on those type of design things to maybe if we don't include it in this bullet, at least have it so that we can say that we've spent at this point between whatever, between that. Now we have looked at with all the different varied iterations of the process. The town has now spent, I don't know, I'm making it up. I'm not going to make it up because we're on a public thing. We've now spent X number of hundreds of thousands of dollars, and it's probably, it might even have 7 digits at this point.
Yeah, I think my last count it was 8 something, but
Okay, but it just might be helpful to have that number.
okay.
And maybe it's not on a slide, but maybe we have it.
At the red.
For fodder.
I
Okay.
noticed too, on the slide, some are annual town meeting, some are town meeting. I don't know if that's for a reason or if we can go consistent on that.
Yep. Where do you see the so I see this one ATM. Where's the other one?
That might have been it.
Yep. Okay. Let me just check the previous slide as well.
That one looked good. Oh, yeah, that one. Yeah.
Okay. All right. The TC Pass, let me just go ahead and add this into the dictionary here. Add to dictionary. The TC Passios Committee met from October 2019 to November 2021. The 2021 annual town meeting provided additional funds to complete design work. Probably should swap those bullets. Actually, no, it makes sense in the order it's in.
Okay.
All right. In 2021, the TC Passios Design Committee expected to seek $23.5 million to reuse the TC Passios building. Due to the pandemic, construction costs skyrocketed to nearly $30 million 6 months after receiving a cost estimate. Due to the financial impact on other projects not addressed, a decision was made to pass over the article and for the committee to take a cost-effective approach to address all municipal buildings. In 2021, the TC Passios Design Committee became, let's see, I should put here in January 2022. The TC Passios Design Committee became the Lunenburg Municipal Design Committee with an expanded charge to address the needs at Town Hall, Ritter Building, Brooks House, and TC Passios. The committee created 3 plans for how to address all municipal buildings. After meeting with town boards and committees, the LMBDC created a hybrid plan. All right, these 2 slides are backwards, so let me just move them. Let me get the mouse instead of the trackpad here. All right. The TC Passios to use the front wing as a community center, demolish the central and north wings. Long-term disposition tied to the disposition of Turkey Hill. Potential future use as a playing field, parking lot, and/or public bathrooms. Brooks House was identified as surplus. Town Hall Meeting House for municipal meetings, community groups such as scouts, nonprofits, support groups, community events such as an indoor farmers market, art shows, rooms for rent, and staff meeting. Ritter Building, school district offices, new town hall, municipal offices. All buildings will be accessible to residents of varying mobility needs. I shouldn't say issues, I should say needs. All buildings include future proofing so that future needs can be addressed with a change of use for rooms and or minor alterations. Energy efficient to comply with state requirements, consolidated school and town offices. As I'm looking at this, let me move the trackpad here because I have 2 things here. As I'm looking at this, what should the order of this be?
Maybe consolidate school and town offices first. Yeah. That's just a suggestion.
Did the accessibility hit up ADA compliance upgrades to make it ADA?
Yeah. Yeah, I would say, yeah, I would say, yeah, I would just say all buildings will be handicapped accessible. Well, yeah, all buildings,
Of
all,
which renovation, so therefore we have to make all the buildings ADA compliant. Something along those lines. I don't know the wording for it.
well, I would just say all buildings will be made handicapped accessible. Because yeah, we have to do it, but it's also a huge, a huge improvement of what we have. You know, yeah. Fine.
What do you think about that? Is that drilling down too much?
I would say with access to everybody,
So I would put the future proofing as number 2. Because, basically it's a huge
fine.
thing here of, are we gonna be coming back again in 10 years asking for some more?
that's good. That's good, Dave. I like that. Yeah.
What do you think about this 3rd bullet?
I would say instead of with a common entrance for all, I might consider saying with access with front door access for everybody. Or something like that. We don't have to get, if you're handicapped, you don't have to go around the, side of the building to the up the a secondary entrance,
Okay.
We go back to the page before. I don't know if it's going to be that last bullet, if it's going to be too much to say that we came up with 3 plans. It's almost like, can we just say that we went to the select board, they approved our plan, the hybrid plan? But I wouldn't even mention the hybrid plan. We came up with a plan. This
the
was
plan. Yeah. I was thinking that too, Brian. We have to somehow, if we're going to say it that way, we have to somehow say the hybrid plan, which has become the plan.
yeah. I don't even know if I need the hybrid plan. I don't know if
Yeah,
I
I
have to
think.
the hybrid. It might be confusing, new vocab for people.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I agree. Keep it simple.
Things or created a plan for.
Keep it simple. If you start saying there was 3 plans, and then we created a hybrid plan, everybody's going to ask, well, what are the other plans? Can we review those?
All right.
And we want to say approved by the select board. That was approved by the select board, something that says we did all this work, we presented it to the public, it was in a public meeting, we got approval, this is the plan.
All right. And then how's this one looking? All right.
I think it's good.
Community engagement of the people, by the people, for the people. All right. All meetings of the LMBDC have been open to public participation throughout, not just at public comment periods. All meetings have been remote with dates and times shared on social media to maximize public input. Updates provided to the select board and school committee regularly. I think this should say we met with every community, not every, met with community organizations and nonprofits. We met with every department numerous times to understand and analyze space requests. And by met, I'm big blanket here, including the architects that we've hired. Included representation from APDC at every meeting. We utilize ARPA funding to finalize the design and minimize additional costs to the Lunenburg taxpayer. And then we built on previous decisions made by annual town meeting and by elected and appointed officials. And then we go straight into what we're looking at here. So we start with, so what I will need to do here, I pulled these slides over from the other presentation. I am going to have to overlay them with some things, so I will do some cleanup here a little bit. I do want to keep this here since it's Taylor and Burns created these images. I think that should be attributable to them, but I do want to just again add some extra headers here, which I haven't done. So starting with the Ritter Building entrance, going straight into the overall town hall, I think I can probably make some of these images a little bigger. Whoops, definitely don't want to change those dimensions. All right. So I'll work on that later. Same thing with the town halls, a similar thing here. So just going through these photos we've all seen a bunch of times, and then digging straight into the floor plans, starting on the school side of the building, working to the left, looking at the second floor, looking at the basement, and then going into the what the whole building will look like from kind of a centralized perspective. And then what these kind of how the elevations work with each other. So that generally going back to the beginning here, and I'm going to go back to this slide. So scope/Y. So scope.
So can you go back to that one? The agenda overview. I feel like it's the title could be different. I feel like it's not an agenda for a meeting. I was thinking of other words, maybe like outline as key points or what we'll cover. Something,
Something more engaging, less formal.
I don't know. It just didn't seem like it was more of an agenda. It was more like presentation overview. It's kind of like a table of contents, but I didn't want to say that. Topics we'll cover. Um,
Yeah,
Yeah.
actually, Brian, just as that last one, I like that. Maybe topics we'll be covering. And it just as a kind of be friendly as much as we can.
So topics we will cover.
Yeah.
That's good.
So at the very end of this, which I said I haven't done yet, is this cost breakdown. We do have that slide. I need to make some modifications to it based on the final numbers that are actually before the town. We've seen this 1,000 times, I'm sure. And then we already have some slides that were previously done about how buildings work in the Commonwealth. But this is just going to be a 1 and 2 slide insert. And then I don't know about existing buildings. I'm hesitant to even include it. I don't know how effective those slides are, but it might be helpful to show them. I don't know.
it's important to talk about the TC Passios that school offices, they're moving out like they can't even
Yeah.
stay there. They feel like it's unsafe. Um, and you can talk about the conditions too at even Ritter and Town Hall too. But my thought was we almost want to hit up the idea of what if this doesn't pass? What is the working conditions of our town employees? What is the future of town offices and school offices?
Should we
That's a good idea.
add that as a
Oh, and what is it going to cost if we do this next year or the year after or the year after and we put this off? What's the inflation cost? The impact of waiting, yeah, the impact of delays. Oh yeah, we should just do it 2 years from now. Let's wait.
So I think the impact of delays I think that might replace existing buildings. I think that's a good slide to probably go into existing conditions. Here's what happens if this doesn't move forward. Does that sound reasonable?
Yeah,
Mhm.
we can connect it too with the capital plan. Like this is going to have a huge impact on capital planning too, because these buildings are going to need so much more repair that it's going to take away from all the other capital projects, police cars, fire trucks,
Yeah.
ambulance.
All right. I should have spent more time on the impact of delay slide, Brian.
My only other thought too was
Those
I
history slides took forever, by the way.
by a presentation by someone who has no idea what we're talking about because we all know what we're talking about, but I feel like somebody who has no idea what we do and what the buildings are, and if you can run it by somebody outside the committee that is new to this, they might have some different angles or see something that we didn't see.
All
Maybe
right.
something.
So one of the impact of delays, Brian, you said a couple things that I just want to capture here. You know what? I'm just going to go to the slide and I'm just going to make some notes right in it so that way I can make sure I'm capturing them right. To the effect on, is this a effect? Yeah, effect on capital plan and to discuss, I have the history of building costs. I think you were saying some other things, Brian. Let me just I didn't write them down, so you want to hit them to me again.
I would say something like perpetuation of substandard working conditions from town employees. I mean, I don't think that's a stretch to say it like that, but maybe you want to wordsmith that a little bit.
Yeah.
That definitely needs to be brought up. In all the discussions I've seen and heard and had, people don't seem to talk about that, and that is really important. That the current working conditions for town employees is unacceptable. So whether we, this money is going to improve the lives of our employees, which is important.
I'm gonna see if something I asked Chris Ruth about, and I think this would be helpful, is the introduction of a video. Although I am by no means a video expert, I can certainly film some video and just string it together just to kind of walk through what is it like to be in the Ritter building right now, going into the rooms that the public doesn't get into, like the rooms with all the asbestos in them, and what those floors look like. Just kind of having a little video clip here that says this is where your break room is. If you are in these buildings right now, let's ride the elevator to the second floor. I think I can do it in probably 2 minutes.
So one of the big things here on the impact of delays is just the cost.
Yeah, inflationary measures. Yeah.
Yeah. We saw it went up, what, almost 8% last time when we waited a year.
Oh yeah, that was 25% increase in 6 months. But yeah.
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 So even if we said if we did, if you had it where the cost is X today, based on history, the cost will be X if we waited 2 years.
Yeah.
Because somehow we got to get this town away from kicking the can down the road.
I don't know. I'm no expert in this, but so I raised this as a question, not necessarily maybe it's a bullet point, but I mean, this fits into the debt schedule presently, correct?
It does. There are 2 years that we will, at the very beginning of this, there are 2 years where we will be slightly above our policy threshold. But then we
That
come back down below it pretty
that's
immediately.
the worst case scenario.
Yes, worst case scenario. Yep.
Yes.
So from a timing standpoint, with other debt that's falling off and things, the timing's good from a debt standpoint. It seems like. I don't, again, I don't know if that, I'm saying that out loud, but
Yeah, yeah. So
it doesn't matter when we do this project, we're gonna have to borrow. And
Right.
so it seems like
This is
now
a
is a
good-
good time to,
this is a good time to do it because we are losing some debt, and this debt we can afford, and then also this debt will be starting to pay down as we have to deal with the debt for the Turkey Hill School,
with
or
whatever
whatever
we
that
do.
may be. So
Yeah.
this fits in the right area for us, and allows
And-
us to layer our debt over time and keep within the guidelines that we set for ourselves.
And Tom, if we put a bullet on the slide like this, I'm judging from your comments just now, we're apt not to get any. We'll get some head nods from the finance committee. Is that?
Yes, well, Chris has numbers that he has done,
Yeah.
our
okay.
chairman in the finance committee, and they show them. So I guess I can get access to them, or Chris, or someone could talk to Chris and get them from
Well-
him, or Chris could just. I have a feeling, I know for a fact he has it available, so he would be talking about it if asked.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that we don't put a bullet on here that the finance committee isn't comfortable with.
No, we
okay.
talked about it at the last meeting,
Okay,
and we didn't vote on anything, but it wasn't something we would vote on. It was something we all listened to and nodded our heads and said, yes, we agree.
okay, good. I mean, I think that's a big point. It doesn't matter when we do this project. If we do it now at 23 million or do it in 5 years at 35 million, we're still gonna have to borrow for it.
And the other part that we haven't talked about is the past history of our neglecting of buildings. We tore down the old primary school, and we're going to probably tear down either all or the majority of TCP. And are we going to be, it was our lack of investment in those properties that caused those things to happen. We don't want to make the same mistake with the Ritter building and the current town hall. We need to put something in. We need to express that somehow.
Yeah, that's good.
And I think it's worth noting here that buildings are our most expensive costs. I mean, it's just we're always going to spend the most money on a building, and building preservation, is important. One of the things that I was hoping Glenn would still be here with us if he is. Oh, Glenn, you are. So, Glenn, if I can chime in, if I may ask, and I don't want to put you on the spot, you're certainly not welcome. You're welcome to not comment. I know that you have vocalized some concerns about the project, and I just want to ask if you wouldn't mind giving some voice to some of that, because what your concerns are helpful for us to know, so that way we can address them.
And you're in specific to what aspect? I'm sorry.
Overall, in the project overall, I know
Oh
that
boy. Well, without you summarized it correctly. I'm it's fair to say I'm not a big fan of this plan. I think one issue that would be nice to clarify and expand upon would be, I think it was on the history slide where you indicated that the selectmen endorsed this plan. I think, and I can't attribute it directly to the Municipal Building Design Committee meetings, but certainly to include them as well as other boards. Some of my takeaways have been that and these aren't original thoughts, these have been planted, is that Lunenburg voters do not have an appetite for large projects, as well as Lunenburg voters want options. And that brings me back to that history slide where you have the selectmen endorsing this plan. What I think would be helpful for those of us who don't support it would like to hear the advantage or the logic maybe of why other plans aren't also, or options, I should say, why other options are not presented to the voters. And I would just use this specific example if the well-identified issues with the current town hall and the Ritter building, if those issues were addressed as one option, it's essentially status quo, addressing all the issues that have been identified. Just for example, if that was one option that the voters had, and certainly as part of that option, you would articulate, the reasons why you don't support it. But, I do think voters having an option, particularly in light of such an expansive option, would be helpful. So for me, that would be a stumbling block. A second one would be, you rely upon or reference that TAPE study, and that did a pretty comprehensive review of the municipal buildings. I think if you could tie in this project into the recommendations that are listed within that TAPE study would be helpful. I personally was looking forward to, I'm not a big fan of Zoom meetings and, particularly, online. I mean, I know all the meetings are recorded and whatnot, but so I was looking forward to hopefully some in-person meetings. Like I have attended actually 2 of the in-person meetings of the Parks and Rec relative to Marshall. And I found those to be helpful and did share, concerns I had, to help them, bring me along. And I was hopeful to, participate in the insight tours of the buildings, which I don't know if I missed, but I think that would have been helpful. And so I mean that's far from the end of it. I just think it is. I'll stop there.
Well, Glenn, it's very helpful, but if you want to have anything else, you're more than welcome to throw it at us now. I'm making some notes.
Well, like as I've said before, it's really hard to make public comments, and then I find it even sometimes more difficult to stop.
Okay. All right.
But in summary, yeah, I like I've said before, in public forums and whatnot, there is, and I kind of stand by it. There is nothing about this project that I like, and I have to be honest, and I feel bad, and I do not want to insult the committee, and I do not want to sound as though I'm critical, because even listening here today, there is nothing that there's nothing that's particularly offensive. I do not disagree, and I do understand and am mindful of the fact that this has been an issue that's gone on for many moons, and I'm mindful of the fact that the voters keep voting it down. But part of me wonders if it's, again, not my original thought of that Lunenburg voters do not have an appetite for large projects, and that if they were given the opportunity to do the right thing by their employees and fix the existing buildings, that I think that would certainly pass. And I do understand that you guys have been charged with the impossible, but there really should be a roadmap. And as much as possible, I realize issues, change with time, but overall, the voters need to really understand that, even with this large ticket item, that the the study, the initial study, if you will, the summary of the Turkey Hill just came out, and the numbers to rehab that were 16 million versus the projected or estimated 100 million to replace it. So I mean, it's incumbent for, I think, everyone to make the voters understand of all these different projects coming down the pike, and specifically the Lunenburg Adult Activity Center. I know that they are, bursting at the seams each time they introduce a new program or expand. They move a table to the left, they got to move a cabinet to the right. They're bursting at the seams, and in fact, they're going to be requesting like a feasibility study next year through Chris Ruth for the capital plan to maybe get a feasible study of accessing the second floor. And in that bullet where you guys were, charged with reviewing all town buildings, I'm not convinced that building was adequately assessed in the whole process. And the town has to be at least kind of on notice that, boy, that issue might be coming up, sooner than later. And could that if a roadmap was in place where all these issues that are TC Passios, which is the source of a lot of motivation to get these issues done, it's like, boy, maybe that should be the first thing, after the Brooks House, maybe that should be the first thing to be addressed, to open up all the available options. And because people throw down the term community center here and there, but that's the whole school campus, if you will. I would like to have heard maybe conversations as to if there was a community center, would the existing Lunenburg Adult Activity, the Eagle House, would that suffice for the ACE? Was it the ACE program with the school administration? Maybe with that building, like maybe you could summarily dismiss that. But so there's just so many issues with so many town buildings in really inaction. And I also find the what you guys use to sell, again, the TC Passios, the school and the administration, the ACE program has to move to the Turkey Hill. That actually alleviates a lot of the pressure to handle them, particularly with the discussion of the Turkey Hill. I'm assuming rehabilitation on the horizon. Is that, could that accommodate the school administration and ACE program? Not only, could it accommodate it or address it, but could it address it better? Okay, now I'll stop.
All right. So I appreciate all those comments, Glenn. I mean, I think to the committee, a couple takeaways there is that, I do think that as we talk about cost here, we do need to extract the information that educates the public on cost to fix existing. So in the cost summary that we have, let me stop sharing this and share something else. In the cost summary that we have, they do break down the by building costs. So, we want to rehabilitate Town Hall, that has to get rehabilitated anyway. We know the cost of that building. We know the cost of Ritter Building and what that is going to take to rehabilitate regardless. And those numbers can be extracted from this. I mean, I don't know. We're not going to win over Mr. McLeod, but it's helpful to hear, I think, Glenn's feedback here. And I think some of it can be addressed. I think when we get into the slides about how we address buildings, I do think now it's worth noting that, Brian, let me know what your thoughts on this are, that for the TC Passios project, I mean, we were at 14 million for code upgrades alone. No substantial increase to the building. It was 14 million to upgrade the plumbing, to meet the new seismic things, to upgrade the electrical. Building was still functioning as it is. And then we were going to spend another roughly 14 million just to put it back together again.
Yeah, I would agree. And I appreciate Mr. McLeod's comments, because he does make some great points. I think it needs to be addressed that, that TC Passios, so there was a lot of issues. It was not going to work, and that's why we went to the idea of maybe a new build on that space. And then that's when the new charge came in. Maybe we should be exploring these other buildings because people really care about the Ritter building. They really care about the town hall. How can we incorporate that into the plan and talk about how we created the hybrid plan without talking about the hybrid plan? But we had all these things, and you could talk about potentially Turkey Hill, talk about people are going to say, why aren't you, yeah, renting a building, buying another building? Because people are going to say all these other ideas. We're already seeing it on Facebook. Why don't they do this? Why don't they do that? So I think hitting up the idea that we have explored these, that we've done the research, I think that can help a little bit with the community buy-in, that the research has been done and we've explored a lot of this stuff. And why the schools should be together with offices. And that was all I had, but I do appreciate the comments. That was good.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if we should spearhead the ACE comment, but I mean, it's gonna come up at town meeting for sure. Of why is
The Turkey Hill part, that it's really temporary offices, that this is not a realistic office space for schools, that they're temporarily moving out of TC Passios because it's falling in on them.
Yeah, and then access to the school district offices becomes a lot more restrictive once you put it into a school building. I think the public has to be educated that ACE program are adults, that these are 18 through 21-year-old adults. I don't think the average person is comfortable with adults being in a building that has a bunch of 10-year-olds in it.
You can hit up
And
the topic of the cost too. If we don't and we send them to another town, the costs associated as well as the impact on those students who are going to be living in our community. We want them to be in our community learning, not learning how to work in a different town or city.
Yeah, and
we
part of
also,
oh, I'm sorry, Greg.
we pushed back on this.
We did heavily.
We were told every single time we pushed back on it that the ACE program has to be co-located with the school department. Period. I don't know. I don't know how else we can. I don't know a better way to respond to that. Like, the committee didn't think it was a good idea.
We didn't. I think we consistently were opposed to the idea of ACE being in the building, and the school committee, not school committee, school district was adamant that it must be. And I think, as I recall, their strongest argument, it was that these are adults that have jobs that are engaged in the community, and co-locating them with children is inappropriate. And that putting them with municipal offices, they're in and out. They go to college, many of them during the day. It's a touch point for a lot of them to kind of get that additional support just to help them get into adulthood. But it's a young adult program. It's not an older child program, you know. But I remember that being their strongest thing, but I also remember us being adamantly opposed to it.
Oh, maybe
And
not, but just I guess the way I describe it is just a real healthy. We had a healthy discussion,
Yeah.
and some questions about it, and it was certainly part of the process. I don't know.
And it was kind of the sacrifice of keeping the school and town offices together.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, that's the way it.
And one of the other issues too is, I don't know if part of the presentation you would review the options highlighted by the TAPE study, and like I said, review how this project would fit into that report. Because assuming some people have, like myself, at least read the initial, introduction and the options, I think, tying in this project and how it fits or where it doesn't fit, why it does now, I think to address any of the inconsistencies or,
Yeah, when the TAPE study was done, what I recall was that the decision was made by the select board to look into the reuse of the TC Passios building, that was seen as ADA compliant, the easiest building to convert over, to put everyone in kind of under one roof. And as we worked through that, I think the bottom line is at $30 million, and that cost is much higher today than it was 4 years ago. But at $30 million, not addressing Town Hall, not addressing Ritter, not addressing Brooks, not addressing Turkey Hill, we've boxed out those projects. And then I think the other thing that I know we were mindful of was, when you're in a construction period, you have to provide temporary offices to staff. And so some of this was also cost saving, that most staff can remain in place while the new town hall is being constructed. The displacement will affect a small amount of staff when the two buildings are connected. And then everyone kind of remains in place. Then everyone moves over from Ritter and Town Hall into the new Town Hall. And then, the renovation can occur at the Ritter building and the current Town Hall. So that way, there's still the displacement of meeting space, but you don't have that daily cost of displacing employees that need to have public facing engagement, which is a bunch of trailers, and trailers are not cheap. But I do think that that's a good point to address, is that. And the Council of Aging their building was recently renovated. I wouldn't say recently, but it was within the last maybe 10 years or so. So I do see that we were joined by someone named Tom. And so I just want to invite Tom to offer any.
That's me. I had to switch.
Okay.
It's Tom Gray.
Okay.
I had to switch from one thing to another because my battery was drying out.
All right. Excellent. All right. All right, so maybe as a good next step here, if the committee is, let's see, it's already Wednesday, I can't call another meeting. Maybe a good approach is for me to provide the slides to everyone this evening as best I can. And then if you can respond to me and me only with any feedback, and then if I can, I want to have a designated person to bounce ideas off of tomorrow. So is anyone available tomorrow morning that I can check in with and just do a final review with this? And I will take your suggestion to approach a member of the public at large, or even a friend of mine who's uninformed, and get their feedback.
Let's see.
I'm available if needed, but I feel like Greg is probably more of a specialist than I am.
I can be available tomorrow morning up until about 11:30,
Okay.
and then my day kind of devolves into a little bit of a train wreck.
Okay.
And I can be available too if you need be.
All right. Perfect. So I'll make some more progress on how we're going to address those kind of final things. Generally speaking, though, in terms of, I'm using a standard template for the slide background. But any thoughts on how it's presented? I'm always concerned about too much data, but I think this is data heavy. Should I incorporate more photos throughout? What are your thoughts on that kind of stuff?
So I'm always presentations for me was always least amount of words as possible. Pictures are always nice because people will only read the slide or listen to you, never both. That's the first rule of presenting.
Yep.
So, if the famous one was, Steve Jobs would have 3 slides, but talk for a half hour and that kind of thing. But, that's the thing to just keep in mind. If they're reading the slide, they're not listening to you. And I don't know how you do that, because like I say, we have some of these where you're doing the bullets.
And I think it would be impactful to show pictures of the buildings, especially even TC Passios. But I don't know how much you want to get into that.
Yeah, I have a lot of photos of TC.
I mean, yeah, interior pictures, I would say. Everybody knows what the outside looks like. Interior pictures that show the work when we're communicating the current conditions, I guess. One question I have, Michael Ray, I was going to print packets of these. I was going to print a packet of not the slides, but the renderings.
Yep.
I am still willing to do that. I just need to get them.
All right, I can send it to you in the PowerPoint, and you can extract them. But I think that the ones that I've included in here that the architect put together would be the best ones to choose.
Yeah, I can take them out of that. Um,
You also, I did send you on, I think February the 25th, I did send the whole document to everyone.
all right, then maybe I have it already. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm assuming you mean April 25th.
No,
Oh,
February.
February 20th? You
Yeah,
sent this?
that's when the architect provided the renderings to us.
Those. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
you can probably just pull them out of there. That's how I got them. I just pulled
Oh,
them.
okay. All right. Yeah, all right. And so I'll just do the ones that you have in the slide. I want to make sure I give them the ones that are in the slide deck. So
Okay.
in that order.
Okay. Yep.
So,
All right, I'll keep working tonight, and like I said, I'll get it out to everyone tonight. But generally speaking, I mean, I know these things are hard to pass, right? And I know, coming to the end of my term, I have been very tired. I'm on a mad dash right now with a couple of different things, so I'm exhausted. But generally speaking, I think that we are we're in a climate right now where parents are outraged that schools are about to be cut. There's a whole campaign out there that speaks against that. I know that one of the questions that's going to come up here is what is the cost to run the building? I've emailed a parent and said to them, anyone who's in this field that tells you that they can project energy and utility cost out 10 years is, I'm sure I use some colorful words here, but full of crap. Because you just can't do it. You can give a rough estimate for about 3 years, but you really can't project 10 years out on utility costs. You can assume some maintenance in terms of what you're going to spend on cleaning services. But I think the real thing is what we're not going to spend on capital improvements to municipal buildings. And I think that we've already discussed that, but so I mean, I rate probability here as I think a reasonable person hearing the presentation. I think most people will be in favor of it, but we do need a 2/3 majority here, and then it's a simple majority at town meeting at the ballot. So if it doesn't pass, we try it again, and I would just encourage everyone to try it again, and hopefully we can get to a point where it does pass, but. I do think that my calculations that I've done already suggest that every 2 years that goes by, the project gets 10% smaller or costs 10% more. And that's roughly the numbers we're dealing with. And that's assuming things are normal. That is not reflecting what's happened in the past 5 years. But that's assuming that we're in a normal trend now. And so every 2 years, and realistically, we know that, if members of the community want to come together, and request funding is going to happen next town meeting, which is already a year delay. You're going to spend a year, so that's already a 2-year delay, and that's a 10% increase in cost. And I think we do need to highlight the real work here is that yes, we've decreased from 55,000 square feet and $30 million to a much smaller footprint and $23.5 million. But what we've experienced is that the price per square foot has doubled in the last 4 years.
I think that's the huge point, that the price per square foot has doubled in the last 4 years. Because as we say, this is the timing for something like this.
Yep. And there's always going to be aspects of a product that people don't like and don't agree with, like the ACE thing. But the future proofing is I think the other side of that coin, which is at some point Turkey Hill will move forward, and maybe they will be able to segregate that building. If we're dealing with a cost per square foot over $600, I cannot imagine that in 10 years from now they will have a lower cost per square foot. So I mean, the most cost-effective solution is the one in front of the town right now, but if the town wants to spend $1,000 a square foot because they don't see the value in ACE being there, to me that's such a small fraction of the project to kind of hang your hat on. But I mean, that's the nature of what we do. We've all heard so many opinions for so many years. I think the history here demonstrates that we have been at this now for 12 years almost straight. trying to figure out how to solve this. And what we've learned is that the town doesn't want to sell any of the property. They don't want to lease any of the property. They don't want to give the select board the ability to do it unless they come to the voters at town meeting, which is not how the market works. The market is not going to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars engineering and designing a plan that could potentially not go anywhere. They will do that if it comes up to permitting, but they're not going to do that if it comes down to actually being able to buy. And so I mean, I think we're just in this kind of cycle where unfortunately membership in town changes, who participates in town meeting changes, and so we speak of town meeting like it's a consistent body, but then you hear things 2, 3 years into it that's so radically different than what we've heard before. I don't know if I agree with that. I've lived in town since I was 10 years old. At this point, I've been a resident for 33 years. I just had a birthday, so 33 years. And I don't know if the town is averse to large projects. I know that when we discussed a large building project in the late 90s, it didn't pass, and we ended up breaking it down and spending, 5 times as much money because we didn't do it as one time. However, what percentage of the town in 2025 were here 25 years ago? If normal trends hold, about 20% of the town, and 80% has not lived here since 2000. So it's really, it's hard to kind of, and then all the other big things we've done in the last 25 years, we built a library, passed, public safety building, passed, new primary school, passed, a new middle high school, passed. So, I mean, DPW renovations, passed. So, I mean, I don't know if I at all agree with the idea that the town is averse to large projects, as much as it's really hard doing the work that I think we've done, which is assembling the variety of interests, getting to a solution that no one's like, I love this, but I can live with this. And to me, that's the best we can really strive for in the municipal world, because everyone gets a vote and everyone has their thing, Any other comments, thoughts?
Just a quickie thing that, we've talked about ACE, but nobody said anything about PAC. And the cost for PAC is about the same as the cost for ACE. So,
Yeah. Yep.
but that's okay.
Yeah.
Now, what the heck? What's another $500,000?
But again, our board's advisory,
Yeah.
and we received direct input. I mean, I'm not trying to throw anybody under the bus here, but our board was tasked with coming up with a plan, and we had to get the feedback from everybody involved, and we're instructed to include PAC, in my opinion.
I think that's an excellent recapturing of what occurred.
Michael, actually, you might want to outline that our charter was to include and then include all these entities that we had to.
Yeah.
Just so that it's seen as that we're trying to do the best job with the most amount of stuff.
Yep.
Trying to put 5 pounds of shit in whatever they call that comment.
And to the PAC point, because like I said, I could have kept going, but I have made previous comments relative to PAC, and would reiterate my complete support for them. But I think it would also be helpful if you explain to the voters, why you wouldn't just assign the current town hall to PAC, like say, okay, PAC, this is your building. Just make sure you maintain meeting spaces, et cetera, and so forth, and essentially hand it off to them. Because one of the conversations I would have liked to have heard was, in my opinion, as soon, and I speak from someone who embraces the historic value of town hall, having been doing my due diligence before moving here, stepped in there, acknowledging how awkward it was to get into that building, that I loved it. It was frozen in time, the creaky floors, I fully embraced that. But I would also, being realistic, as soon as the proposal to pull all first line offices out of that building, I think the town would have had to have a very serious and heartfelt conversation relative to the future of that building as a front line, or actually being a town-owned building, having it being in the portfolio. And I think the easiest step to not do that, not um, get rid of that building off the portfolio, is to assign it to PAC and go from there. Because a previous comment I made is relative to PAC is their content coverage is certainly invaluable, and I would like to hear more information on the financial impact of the creation aspect of it, specifically the space needs, unique space needs for the studio.
So just a quick comment on there is we tried to give town hall to PAC and they didn't want it.
Yeah, I think it'd be good to hit up the highlights of the PAC's needs and also the additional funding that they're bringing to the project as well.
Correct.
Yep. All right. Oh yeah. I know, Glenn, if you go to the website, we do have posted the 3 iterations and the hybrid. So you do get to see what all the different plans were and what the pros and cons of each of them were, and how we landed where we were. And again, we were to come up with permutations, so they had to be distinctively different plans. And as we worked through how to reuse some of these buildings, part of the hardest thing in government is that you need to account for the opinions of the people who are sitting in the roles. You can't second guess everything. And when you're not an educator like ourselves and you hear a hard line from the school department like ACE, where it's like, hey, we're not in, Ritter won't work if ACE isn't with us. We must be with ACE, period, end of story. That is how the school district presented ACE. And despite fighting and arguing and going back, why, that was their line in the sand, and it had to do with education of children. And so ultimately we accommodated. And similarly with the PAC program, where, we were in a position where this committee said PAC is going to be addressed in a future phase. And knowing the members of the select board as I do, I recognize that we were likely going to lose their support. And so I asked for their input. I did not vote in that request, but the vote was 4-0, in which the board directed this committee to include PAC. And so I think what's healthy is to maybe, as we do this, I got to time this, but to drill into the fact that a lot of decisions were made by a lot of other people that we had to incorporate. Because at the end of the day, 7 people don't decide these things. And if we were working in a vacuum, things couldn't move forward. All right. Any other thoughts before we head out here for the night? All right. Let's go to really quickly meetings, meeting minutes. Brian, do you have those dates put up and handy in front of you?
Yeah, it was just April 7th,
All right.
2025.
All right. I move to approve the meeting minutes for April the 7th.
Second.
Any additional discussion? This would be a roll call vote. Brian,
Aye.
Dave,
Aye.
Tom,
Aye.
Greg,
Aye.
and I don't see Tony with us anymore. Minutes are approved. Thank you, Brian. And then, all right. So I know that our goal here was to have some open houses to let the public come in, see these buildings. I do think it will be a wise strategy if this vote passes, to make sure that's taken care of before the ballot vote occurs. And I will touch point with Chris Ruth tomorrow morning, and then just get into a couple spaces, do a little bit of filming, and piece together a video and save it to YouTube or something, so that way we can quickly just log into it while we're at the meeting. All right. Any other comments, thoughts? All right, Glenn, you have my phone number. I hope if you can give me a call, I would appreciate it after this meeting ends. Otherwise, it is end of the meeting. Do we have any final public comments?
The school committee is interviewing the first candidate for superintendent tonight. So if anybody's interested, it starts at 7:30.
Excellent.
Good luck. All right.
Uh,
How many candidates are there, Brian?
Yeah.
How many?
4.
4. Okay.
It'll be 2 this week and 2 next week, and then we'll make a decision.
I have thoroughly enjoyed my service to the town over these past, I don't even know how many years now, 8 years, 6 years on the select board, you're on the planning board, working for the charter review committee. I think coming into this, I recognize as a property professional that, I manage buildings and property for a living, and I saw a need in the town and figured I would be able to step in and be helpful. I had no idea how challenging it is to work with so many people, so many stakeholders to get to a project that has enough buy-in from enough people to have a chance. But it has been the focus of what I think I've been doing since I've been on the board, as well as helping the town move in a direction where we are mindful that we are an employer. That it's not just about the needs of the individuals, it's also the how. How do we get our needs met when we don't provide our staff with adequate working conditions? How do we get our needs met when we don't have adequate pay in so many departments? And as I reflect on my many years here, I'm grateful for the growth in the library in particular. It is the one department that has grown the most over my tenure. There has been a lot of advocacy on my part, usually behind the scenes. The expansion in school programming services for parents that occur at the library, I think has been phenomenal. I'm a graduate of Lunenburg High. I'm very appreciative of and I spent a lot of time as a kid in the library. So I'm grateful for the work that I've been able to do, particularly with the library, working with public safety. We have added police officers, we have added firefighters, and that has been tremendous for a town that has grown 20%. And then also, of course, our DPW. It was really hard to recognize and understand, why we had so many vacancies in one department particularly, where we just couldn't hold on to people. And when we did a comp analysis and identify that we were paying 30% below the next comparable town, that resulted in a significant increase in wages. I'm happy for my advocacy for bringing Chris Ruth on to staff, for creating a department that is facility oriented, so that way we can get out of the position we've been in. So I'm not trying to pat myself on the back too hard here, but I do want to say that I feel grateful. What you will expect to see from me over these coming years, hopefully, is not much. I do plan on stepping way back. This is, sharing this. I joined the Army on Cinco de Mayo when I was 17 years old. It was 10 days after my 17th birthday, and I have been a public servant ever since. There has not been a day of my life where I have not been subject to the Uniform Code of Military Justice or not been a town or state servant. So I look forward to stepping back, enjoying life like most people do. And I want to thank you guys for being so great to work with. I appreciate the bond that I think I formed with you, Greg. I appreciate the phone calls. I know with Dave, Tom, and I haven't had as much time together, but I have thoroughly enjoyed our conversations. A tremendous respect for Brian. Matt, Allison, and I spend time together one-on-one. Our former member, who's now on the school committee. And I'm sure, given Mr. Beardmore, giving everyone a run for his money, he and I have become quite good friends. And then, of course, Christina, I think the input she's added has been valuable. So I think I'm going to miss you guys a lot. I have offered to the select board that if this passes, if they so choose, I will remain as their representative on this committee. But if it doesn't, I intend to step back, and I'm going to do what former presidents do, even though I'm not equating being on the select board to being a president. But I will do what former executives do, which is step back, let other people do what they do. I have full trust and confidence in the good people of Lunenburg. And I just want to thank you guys for the opportunity.
Thank you, Michael Ray. Thank you for your service.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
thanks.
All right, I move to adjourn.
I'll second that motion.
Any additional discussion? All right, roll call vote. Brian,
Aye.
Dave,
Aye.
Tom.
Oh, might have lost him.
No, I think he unmuted and said aye. Greg.
Aye.
And I for myself. Thank you guys. I'll check in with you guys in the morning. Have a good one.
You got it. Look forward to seeing everybody Saturday.
All right.
Bye.